How long does it take to get a manuscript published in a peer-reviewed journal? And how do you think about time commitments, how you might space out your journal submissions, and the overall process so you navigate it to your advantage and don't let it overwhelm you? That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. Hi everyone, I'm Leigh Hall from teachingacademia.com, and I'm all about giving you the tools you need to navigate academia and make your best impact. If you're new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button so that you get new notifications as I put out new videos each week. So today we're taking up a viewer question, and it goes like this. What is a typical timeline for publication of a peer-reviewed article? I once sent out 3 manuscripts I had been working on within a short amount of time, not realizing the time commitment each would require as they popped up randomly in the upcoming months. Yeah, that could be a little bit painful. So the way that I'm thinking about this is, how do we understand the timeline for publishing your academic writing in grad school in peer-reviewed journals? And that's really important. So let's start with a quick explanation of how the timeline works. Now, this, of course, is very general, and you'll want to check and see how your specific field works. But typically, you can expect it, like 2 months would be excellent, but probably you're looking at 3, maybe even 4 months before once you submit something and it goes under review and it gets returned to you with a decision on it. Okay, now why is that? So typically what's going to happen is you're going to submit your manuscript. Somebody at the journal is going to look it over and make sure, you know, this looks pretty good. It looks like the kind of thing we would publish. It looks appropriate. And then they're going to send it out to reviewers. And that's where it starts to get messy, because usually for reviewers, we get 2 weeks, sometimes we get 3 to review a piece, but not all reviewers follow up, right? So even when sometimes it takes editors a while because they have to get people to agree to review your piece. Some people are busy, out of town, whatever. They never answer their email. Then when they get reviewers to agree, not all reviewers are good about returning it by the deadline. So that extends how long this takes, okay? But ideally, in a perfect world, it would take about a month, maybe 5 weeks, to get from initial submission to getting reviews back. Then the editorial team is going to have to sit down, look at your manuscript, make a decision on it. If it's a revise and resubmit, then they're going to have to pull together a letter for you explaining what revisions you need. So 2 months, 3 months sometimes. Okay. So that's, for starters, that's in general how that initial timeline works. What if it goes slower? So I want to address some things, just some issues that I think can arise in this overall timeline process. And the thing is what if it goes slower? So what if you know that it should take 3 months, but it's taken 4 months and 5 months and 6 months? And yes, unfortunately, that's something you're probably going to run into for reasons beyond your control, right? You feel free to reach out to the editor. Don't reach out to the editor if they tell you that your review can be, your decision letter is going to be in by April 1st and it's April 2nd. Don't do that. But if it's a month or more past what is a reasonable timeline, then just reach out and say that you were just checking in about the progress, the status of your manuscript, and see what they tell you. And unfortunately, there are some journals where they say they're going to return it to you in 3 months, and the next thing you know, it's 5 months, and they say, oh, we're going to have this to you, within the month. And then the next thing you know, it's 7 months or 8 months. You have to follow up again and again and again. So you need to stay on top of this with some journals. Just be reasonable about it and ask for advice. Ask us in the comments section to help you if you need help with thinking about how to approach editors and journals, because you've got a delayed piece in the pipeline. All right, now, for the specific question is, the viewer for this question, for this video, has a unique problem, right? This person once sent out 3 manuscripts, and they within a short amount of time, and then they started popping up randomly, right? If I send out a manuscript in January, one in February, one in March, well, somewhere around May or June, these are going to start popping back up. And if they all get a revise and resubmit on them, then ta-da, I'm going to have to make all these revisions, okay? So remember, first of all, that revise and resubmit is a good thing. So if you're in this situation where you sent 3 manuscripts out pretty close to one another, and then they start popping up asking for revisions, it's going to be overwhelming. It's going to be a lot. But it's a good problem to have, right? Because they didn't get rejected. So a lot of people are not going to be they're not going to feel too sorry for you, okay? But one way to think about this is there's nothing wrong with this approach, right? There's nothing wrong with sending out 3 manuscripts within a relatively short amount of time. You might want to be mindful of your calendar. So, for example, I had to revise and resubmit recently, and I asked upfront for an extension because I got it back about 2 weeks before Christmas. And so I asked for an extension just because it was the holidays and I wasn't really sure how things were going to be flowing. And they gave me an extension. I proposed a date for the editor. I didn't just say, hey, can I have an extension? I said, I would like an extension because it's the holidays, basically when I'm getting this back. And this is the date that I would like to submit it to you by. And the editor said, no problem. But here's the thing. I have finished my my revisions probably about 2 or 3 weeks before it needs to be submitted, right, by the deadline that I set for myself that we agreed on. And I'm not resubmitting the article yet. I'm holding it till it gets kind of close to that deadline. Why would I do that? Now, in this case, it's a little bit different from the viewer's question, but it's a similar type of thing. I know that the 3 weeks following the due date that I agreed on with the editor, I know that I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to be out of town for a week. I'm going to be out of the country for 9 days. Okay, so I'm making 2 different trips. If I were to submit this article early, I would probably be getting some kind of a decision on it about the time that I was getting ready to go out of town. Okay. I don't want to do that, right? If it's a reject, that's one thing. But if all of a sudden I'm getting ready to, go on some trips and I'm being told, hey, in the next month, we need a bunch of these revisions, I'm legitimately not going to be able to do it. And I know that. So I'm holding it right now. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to meet the original agreed upon or the revised agreed upon deadline. I'm just choosing to hold it because I would rather it, be delayed for me getting a decision by a month or two than all of a sudden being told I have to do revisions while I'm getting ready to make some trips. So that's one way to think about it. You can think about spacing things out in timeline, but even when you do a really good job of that, you can still run into things where the journal is taking forever to get back to you and it totally screws up how you envision your timeline. So I think being aware of the timeline and just being mindful about when you submit and what your schedule is, and when you're, like in my situation, I'm holding an article that the revisions are done. I could resubmit it anytime, but I'm going to hold it because I know it should only take 4 to 6 weeks, and I don't want it coming back at a really inconvenient time for me, and I don't want to have to ask for an extension because I'm traveling. I've already asked for one extension, so I'm just holding it. I'm not missing a deadline, and so that's great. Otherwise, I think just be as mindful as you can about the timeline. But you obviously, if you've got stuff done, especially if you're in grad school, you're an assistant professor, get it out the door, because you don't know that, if something gets rejected, then you're going to need time to go back to a new journal and start over with that journal. So while I get this person's problem about sending out 3 manuscripts and all of a sudden they're coming back at you with revisions, and revisions can take a while. It's a good problem. It's a worthy problem to have. And while I would try to maybe maintain some sort of control over it, you can't always do that because you can't always predict how these things will play out once they get in the pipeline. So overall, my advice here is, as you get your manuscripts done, send them out for initial review. Just send them out. If you need to hold on to something because you want to give it a little space, do that, but I wouldn't hold anything for more than a month, and then I would send it out. When you're thinking about like the position that I find myself in right now with the revise and resubmit, where I know once I submit it, it's going to be 4 to 6 weeks probably, I'm going to have a decision. If that decision involves more revisions, I can look at my calendar and know that that's going to collide with me being with my travel schedule. So I know that even though I've finished in advance of the deadline, it's okay, it's perfectly fine. I'm going to hold it until the deadline to try to alleviate that problem. All right. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe so you can catch all my videos. And while you're at it, let's talk. Tell me in the comments, tell me your questions, tell me your stories, tell me your problems around getting stuff in the pipeline, for getting your academic writing in the pipeline to journals. How's that going for you? Are you running into problems? How are you balancing, revise and resubmits? What do you do if you have multiple revise and resubmits at one time? talk about that so I can help you move forward with your academic journey.